Well, I said we got pros in the wild. Our first story comes from Christian Fletcher.
Ooh, Christian Fletcher. Is he a listener?
No, but he I doubt it. He took to Instagram to voice his disdain for one Shaun Thomson. Did you see this story?
I sure did.
Christian Fletcher posted on Instagram. I think Shaun Thomson commented on his post. I'm not sure where the original post was, but I think
The
it was.
original one seemed like it was a Facebook thing or something. Because I couldn't find maybe it was just an Instagram. I didn't look too far.
I think it was an Instagram post, and I think it was maybe even Christian's original post, but Shaun commented on it and said, I love a bit of old school aggro. Christian chimes in and says, no, you just like to drop in. No, you just like to drop in. But when someone returns the favor, you are the biggest whiny bitch in the world. And then after you're done whining, you go call the police. Is that what you reach? Is that what you teach is what he meant to say. But he wrote reach. As a life coach, how to be a whining bitch? Go back to Africa, kook, with 3 middle fingers.
I heard that Apple has erased, you can't use the middle finger emoji anymore. I wonder if Christian Fletcher broke the button.
Maybe he did. Maybe Zuck's such a big fan of surfing. He was following this story and he eliminated it. But bang. Yeah. Christian calling out Shaun.
That's really funny. But then asked for people to pile on. Then specifically Christian asked, hey, if you've had Shaun Thomson drop in on you, please share.
Right.
Or something.
Well, Mapski on Instagram, I think, I forget if this was a listener or if he just wrote this in the comments, but he's chimed in with his own pros in the wild in the comments, and he said, watched Shaun versus Vince Collier during the Caton contest when the waves were up and he could not get out, meaning Shaun Thomson could not make the paddle out. Vince was out back waiting for the horn as sets poured through unridden, yelling in his basso profundo, start the effing heat, while Thomson was flailing backwards with every duck dive. The judges let him paddle for 15 minutes until he finally punched through. Then they sounded the horn. Shaun won the heat. Vince was ready to kill everyone on the beach.
That's amazing. That is such a good story.
That is a great one. Anyways, that was fun. Fun this week on Instagram. You can always count on Christian Fletcher for this.
You sure can. Christian Fletcher really brought that. I wonder what Shaun Thomson, when he wakes up and sees, his notification button on his phone just getting broken because so many people are atting him with bad stories about him and whatever. If he thinks, oh no, or if he just thinks, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I have no idea. I have a feeling, how much can you take Christian Fletcher seriously?
I mean, that's the thing is and Christian Fletcher, I would hope Shaun Thomson thinks, this is what Christian is good for and good at and what surfing also needs. And so if I'm the brunt of it today, then so be it, right? But also I guess it made me think, because I don't know, I've seen Shaun Thomson in the wild at an event, but never in the water. Is he truly like an egregious drop-in? Apparently he is, because there was a lot of stories, a lot of people commenting about Shaun burned me here and here and here and here and here, et cetera, et cetera. But also... Yeah, the thing that I wanted more information on, you know me, I do not like a cop collar. And so Shaun Thomson pulling an Ashton Goggins, I wonder why or how.
Yeah, I'd like to know that story too. My impression about Shaun dropping in was that he's probably older and wiser now, just like Jerry Lopez confesses to in his, documentary last year with Stacey Peralta, where he's like, at the height of my fame and my powers, I thought I was a golden god and I would just go on everything and I need to make amends to all those people. But at this point, I'm not dropping in on people anymore.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same.
Okay. Well, Shaun, if you're a listener, then feel free to call in and correct the record.
It would be funny if he was upset about that though. Like Christian Fletcher being mad and flipping somebody off is the equivalent to Snoop Dogg smoking weed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you were then pissed that Snoop lit up a blunt.
Was high.
Yeah. So it's
what Christian does.
It's exactly. You should, if he treated you nicely, I would be very suspicious, actually.
I would do a wellness check on Christian Fletcher.
Exactly. Well, coming into Pros in the Wild segment, of course, we're going to give away a Buell wetsuit at the end of the month, as we did last month with Aaron on the North Shore.
Phenomenal wetsuits.
Scott from Japan is in the lead after last week's story about surfing in Australia with Andy Irons and Sonny Garcia.
Japan gets cold too. A nice Buell in Japan would be just the thing.
That is a great point. So you are going to be the judge for this week. Scott's in the lead. Our first story comes from another Aaron, this time on Maui. He says, "Dear Grit, here's my Pros in the Wild story. The year was 2001, and I had just graduated high school. I knew my entire time in school that all I wanted to do was live and surf in Hawaii. So the moment that I got that diploma in my hand, I booked a one-way ticket to Maui. To this day, it's the greatest decision I've ever made. I had grown up ditching class to surf Santa Cruz, so when I first arrived on Maui's North Shore and took off down the line on my first warm water wave, I was in heaven. My first few months there were during the winter season, so I got used to larger waves and duck diving pretty fast. I felt pretty comfortable surfing there, and more importantly, making my way around in the local breaks. I didn't have a car, so the first time that somebody offered me a ride to Honolulu Bay, I jumped at the opportunity. It was the week of the women's surf contest at Honolulu, so I was stoked to see some women pros in the wild, but the swell hadn't quite arrived, so the contest was called off. Thankfully, we had all brought our boards, and we decided not to miss the opportunity to surf the bay for the first time, even in the small conditions. Climbing down the cliff with 5 of my new best friends that I had met the day that I arrived in Maui, I was surprised to see that the bay wasn't crowded, mainly just a couple of the women on tour warming up for the event. I proceeded to sit on the inside keiki bowls, knowing my role. Within an hour, the swell started to fill in, and fast. And just as quickly, a steady crew of locals came streaming down the cliff. When I saw that first wave connect from the first break all the way through to the inside, I finally understood why this wave is so coveted. A flawless freight train, perfectly peeling barrel, longer than I had ever seen in real life. For 2 hours, I had gotten a few waves, but was still trying to just stay on the shoulder, out of the way, still totally enamored by watching each increasingly bigger set and increasingly more impressive surfers fill the lineup. Then the set of the day rolled in. All I wanted to do was make sure I didn't get blasted on the inside, so I just paddled as hard as I could for the shoulder, made it over the first 2 waves of the set, and felt like I was in a safe zone. And I had the treat of being able to watch an absolute ripper on the 3rd wave. He smashed the lip twice on the outside, and I could see that the wave was doubling up, so I just sat up on my board to catch as much of the view as possible. Sure enough, the surfer set it up perfectly, parked inside the overhead barrel a mere 30 feet in front of me. I paused just to watch it all unfold, and he flew past. As he flew past, I did one of those kind of half duck dives, still looking over your shoulder so you could take in every last second. Even after going under, I looked back at him and the wave underwater in all of its glory. Videos that show this angle always look cool, but it doesn't even come close to seeing it with your own eyes and feeling the energy. I was in heaven. I paddled out to find my 5 other buddies, and we started discussing the waves that had just come through. That's when the serenity is spoiled by someone yelling. I look back and realize that it was the guy that I had just witnessed getting barreled out of his mind, and whoa, he was pissed. I thought to myself, wow, whoever that guy's yelling at is in deep shit. I continued paddling up the lineup, feeling nervous about the fight that was about to unfold, and increasingly so because his screaming was getting louder and closer. That's when I start getting rained on by splashing water, and I realized that the yelling is precisely focused. Holy shit, this guy's yelling at me. An absolute movie freeze frame record scratch moment. This dude wants to fight me. I'm in deep. Don't worry, though. I'm here with all of my 5. Wait a minute. All my friends have paddled away from me, abandoning me to this local's verbal lashing. By the way, barrel or not, paddling away from your buddies who are getting blasted by a local. Apparently, my half-assed duck dive created a chandelier and forced him to straighten out of the otherwise perfect barrel. I had no clue, but that's a me problem because this dude is ready to fight. I tell him that I'm not going to fight him, but he insists. I tell him, it's all good. Don't worry about it. I'll just go in. No problem. He says, perfect. I'm going to follow you to the beach. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is called pros in the wild, not locals in the wild. But as I make it to the beach, expecting to catch local heat, I turn back to see none other than Rochelle Ballard, #1 women surfer in the world, paddling over to the local. To this day, I have no idea why she decided to intervene, but she fully lays into this dude, lecturing him in front of the entire lineup. This is, by the way, secondhand. All my friends were still back in the lineup, so they witnessed the entire thing, and I could see it from the beach, but they're the ones who heard it. He tells them that nobody is allowed to treat anyone like that in the water, no matter who they are, where they're from. Absolutely insane. My 5-foot tall surfing heroine out of nowhere. She actually defended me, saying that she saw the whole thing and that I was actually trying to get out of the way, etc., etc. I was so embarrassed, but I went to the top of the cliff and I watched for the next hour. Rochelle absolutely ripped and schooled so many of the dudes out there, putting on an absolute clinic. To this day, she is still my hero. And those 5 new friends, despite their cowardice, ended up being my best friends for life, and one of them was even my best man years later. Thank you for your work and for hearing my story. An absolute shout out to Rochelle Ballard, who I never got to thank for sticking up for this intermediate for life surfer from the valley who will always love Hawaii. Aaron.
Dang it. We keep sending wetsuits to places that don't need wetsuits, David Lee Scales. That is the winner, and I think it's going to be hard to beat. It was perfectly... I was wondering where the pro was going to come. The sneaky at the end, and the fact that it was Rochelle, who is really, truly a legend above and beyond most legends. I mean, it was a perfect story. It doesn't need to be... That lily needs no more gilding. Perfect.
All right. I love it. I forgot to mention at the top of the show, this is all women's segment for Pros in the Wild today.
Great. We need it. We needed this.
I know. By the way, I have dozens and dozens of Pros in the Wild story. I mentioned that to you last week. So we're going to continue reading 3 a week, I think. But I pulled 3 that were all women in the lineup, women professionals in the lineup. And
should I make a tab on Beach Grit where you send me all the rest, and the ones that don't get read or that get vetted at least can go up and be somewhere, exist as a library? Because they're really good.
So. Yeah, maybe
we can talk later about that, but they should go somewhere.
Another buddy was mentioning, like, we got to hire an animator to animate these.
It's so true. It is so true.
This would be an incredible Instagram account if there was animation for each of them.
If anybody knows an animator, or if anybody is an animator, hit us up.
Well, certainly we know animators. It's just such a tremendous amount of work, you know. Well, like they can't do it for
expensive.
Free.
No, of course not. But I think with tech, somebody might have a way to do it. But it's also something that we should discuss further about actually getting a sponsor to fund some animation.
Yeah, I would love that. Well, my buddy who mentioned it also said this is something that AI will do in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Like they'll be able to listen to the story and animate it for you, you know.
Crazy town.
I know, it is crazy. Well, the next one comes in from Beach Grit commenter Com Turin. You know Com Turin. All right, Com Turin says, hey, DLS and Chaz, my freshman year at UC San Diego is when Holly Beck was also attending that same university. She has somewhat disappeared from the surfing public eye since leaving the women's tour about 15 years ago, but at the time, she was being hyped as the next up-and-coming it girl. Being a young and as delusionally overconfident as I was, I also joked with my friends that I was going to hit on her if I ever saw her in the lineup. One afternoon down at Black's, I was hunting an inside left peak that tended to be left less crowded. I saw a goofy-footed blonde girl absolutely ripping the bag out of a wave and then realized that it was, in fact, Holly. About 10 minutes later, I was sitting in pole position after a bit of a lull, and she paddled up to sit about 10 yards away from me. I thought to myself, well, you'd better do what you said you were going to do, and I racked my brain for the line that might actually strike up a conversation. As I was pondering this, the wave of the day popped up on the horizon, and I realized that I was in the perfect spot, and there was actually nobody deeper than me. I abandoned the notion of trying to talk to Holly, made the late drop, and started to come off the bottom, expecting to have this perfectly lined up wave to myself. Further down the line, I saw that Holly was actually appraising me with a look of utter disdain on her face. She suddenly turned around, made her assessment, and went right in front of me. And she knew that I wasn't going to try to keep up with her. At that point, the decision was whether to hit the section and potentially hit Holly as well, or straighten out. Since trying to call her off the wave was clearly not going to help at this point, I straightened out and watched the perfectly lined up wall that stretched out all the way to the beach, with Holly tearing it to shreds. It's one of the most savage burns I've ever experienced, given how much of a gem that wave had been. Though I probably wouldn't have surfed it to its potential, being a lifelong intermediate. But that was not the end of it either. Over the next hour, Holly dropped in on me twice more, despite my efforts to call her off. It became apparent that this slight was not uniquely directed at me. She was going, regardless of who was deeper than her. I considered saying something, but I held my tongue when I realized that nobody else in the lineup that she was dropping in on was calling her out on it. A couple of my friends were surfing further down the beach, and I relayed to them what had happened and that I failed to talk to Holly. From then on, every time that I surfed down at Black's, my friends would ask me if Holly Beck burned me again, or if I'd actually managed to talk to her. I never saw her in that lineup again. And in retrospect, this was an era when surfing was way more of a boys' club than it is today. She was absolutely dominating the peak all afternoon, and nobody attempted to call her off. She schooled everybody out there that day. Calm Turin.
Man, that would be number one if it wasn't for Rochelle Ballard saving the day. That was a great story, Com. Loved it.
Well, what I like about it too is Holly was, I mean, again, in the context of that time, it was a boys' club. The most aggressive boys get the most waves. And so Holly showing up and just playing by the rules of the day, regardless of gender, is exactly what, I mean, it was noticeable because she was a girl. Like, that's what stood out about the equation. But to Holly, she's just showing up on the playing ground and playing by the rules of the playing ground and out surfing everybody.
Has the skill to, has the money to pay her check. Mm-hmm. The funny about these pros in the wild, as I listen, you read them, so you, I guess, know. I am like the listener. I am just along for the ride. They're so good now, and I think the category is set, and what you got to bring to the table has to be, it can't just be I was out and there was, X surfer and I saw him do something cool. There's got to be a twist, right? I had no idea. Was he going to hit on Holly Beck? I didn't see Holly Beck burning Com Turin multiple times as part of the way this story went.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I didn't know where that one was going either when I first read it, but what I walked away with was having mad respect for Holly. There's no complaining. She's just like, boom, she's going to lay down the law and you're not going to say anything. And by the way, I bet she, maybe not in this session, but in sessions she learned early in life, not only do I not want to get hit on by you in the lineup, I am going to make you feel like a fool for ever even thinking that was a possibility. I'm not going to wait for you to say something to me and then try to figure out how to navigate it. Instead, what I am going to do is burn you from the get-go, and you're never going to even open your mouth.
Here's the thing about that story too, that I love these pros in the wild for multiple reasons, but one is these subtle rules of surfing that you kind of inherently know, but you haven't actually had them in your brain as a fully formed thought. In this one specifically, I think there's any kind of adult learner will think surfing goes on a turn basis, right? It's my turn, or if I'm in position, that's all that matters. And that's generally true, that if it is, if you are in position, that wave is yours. With the caveat, if somebody burns you and they rip and you don't rip, you are not allowed to say anything to them unless if you're like surf way worse than them. If they're going to have the guts to burn you and rip it, if you say, hey man, stop burning me. If Calm Turn would have said, hey, that's uncool, man, it was my turn, you look like an utter fool, because the superseding rule is the better surfer gets whatever waves he or she wants.
100%. You are now you're self-identifying as not only a more kooky surfer, such a kook that you don't even know the rules.
You don't even know that and can't even appreciate the like style or ability. You are such a kook that you don't know that Holly Beck is way better than you, and that you suck. And yeah, there was what was it? Back when I was doing the Jamie O'Brien Twitter account, way back in those early years, I wrote one tweet for him that I really thought was good. It was, I think somebody got mad at him for burning him somewhere, and my tweet was just waves look better with me on them, which is, I think, a truism. Like if the wave looks better with that surfer on it, then sorry, even if you were waiting out the back patiently for your turn with the other lifelong intermediates, then enjoy the show, man.
Totally. 100%. Well, the final pros in the wild for today kind of connects both of those last two stories. Comes from Ty in Costa Rica. It said, 2 years ago, nearly perfect pavones. It's head high, clean with a medium light crowd, complete mix of hometown heroes, medium builds, Euro trash beginners, and the major standout in the lineup, Bethany Hamilton. She's ripping, and the entire lineup is rubbernecking to watch her waves. Unquestionably ripping, super impressive to see in person. The other spectacle in the lineup is a dude who's been floating around on the inside. He is wearing a Speedo, rocking an ass-length jet black braided ponytail, and perched on a sun-browned, beaten-up 80s era surfboard. He's not paddling, aware of his surroundings, staying out of the way, or really moving at all. He is a problem. Kind of like a traffic cone that's been sideswiped a few times, but somehow has worked its way still even closer into traffic. A total menace. I've got the perfect shoulder view of the situation as it unfolds. Bethany drops in, nice vertical hack, casual bottom turn, then smashes it again. And an incredible start to what's shaping up to be an endlessly perfect wave. She's pumping through the speedy section just past the river mouth and absolutely hauling ass. She's done everything perfectly to position herself for the most critical section of the wave, where there's no room for negotiation, no room for error, and that's precisely where the traffic cone has decided to park. And this time, he's done it intentionally, just to watch her. He's awestruck, completely frozen, and staring at her with a slack jaw, open mouth gaze. His face says total disbelief. So maybe he knew who she was and he was just starstruck. Either way, he's right in the section that she would want to hit, staring at her, aiming for him. But she takes the prudent path just past him and decides to kick out, narrowly and precisely avoiding the collision. He, on the other hand, gets sucked over with the lip, not the first time today, and seemingly unfazed each time. She reels around, paddles down to him, and proceeds to give him a brutal and animated ass chewing. A brief departure from those positive vibes and Christian values that she's known for. She lights him up. They were just far enough inside to where I couldn't make out every word, but could tell she was heated. Kooky, that was so kooky. What's wrong with you? Kooky. She keeps drawing it out longer like it would be easier for him to understand, but he understood nothing. He said nothing. He just stared at her in wonder, almost as if he liked it. She eventually paddled back out, and the current sucked him around the corner, and he was never to be seen again. I wish I knew where he came from. Where did he find that board? Had he seen Blue Crush more times than me? But I'll never know. Keep up the work, Ty.
Damn it. That is a great story. Shoot. Oh my goodness. I'm stuck, David Lee Scales. I'm stuck on these.
I think we need to send the wetsuits to Rochelle Ballard and Bethany Hamilton.
I think so too. Oh my goodness. That is a phenomenal story. It's a real toss up, but I gotta go with Rochelle. Like, Rochelle is Peacemaker. I love Bethany. It's really hard though. It's even funnier. His traffic cone analogy was epic. I had a buddy who he coached like kid soccer, volunteered, and he would call the kids who are, let's just say, slow. He'd call them cones, which was always good. Cones.
That's solid.
Yeah,
Solid.
but dang it, I'm gonna have to think on this one a little more.
Maybe we take it to Instagram and do a poll. Let
Let's do
people
a poll.
decide.
Let's do
Okay.
a poll.
Rochelle Ballard versus Bethany Hamilton in the heat of the year.
It's the wave of the day for sure right here.
This is going to potentially dethrone Matahi Drole and Emios Cermak at Chopu in the trials finals, because
Could very well.
this has all of the drama built into it as well.
That's
All right. Well, thank you for those Pros in the Wild submissions. Email them to surfsplendor@gmail.com if you want yours to be read. We're just going to keep this going from month to month, I think.
I mean,
Until
I
it
think
gets tired.
forever. I think this has been established. I mean, I guess at some point maybe we'll run out, but we certainly won't. They are like barrels or Nas.
I agree. Keep them coming. There's endless pros in the wild and endless surfers to comment on their good or bad behavior.